Thanks everybody, I hope you can hear me. So this being a bit of a milestone for us, being number 10, I thought that it's probably not a bad idea just to do a recap of why we started these in the first place. We very quickly realized once the pandemic came into being and once we were all in lockdown that the world, as we know it from a work perspective, is going to change, and it's going to change drastically. It's going to be more focused on the humanistic side of business and less focused on the mechanistic side of business, which is where businesses feel quite comfortable. And so we decided to put together a series of webinars, really with the main aim to look at 3 areas of building confidence, because that is really our main remit. And really, leadership can't continue not only dealing with the challenges that the lockdown and COVID and the worries about that brings, but also the challenges of operating in a completely different work environment. So that was one area, which was really around building leadership confidence. The other area was around how do they communicate with confidence. So even if they themselves are feeling uncertain, there are certain things that they are going to have to share with and communicate with their staff and with other employees and with other people who they interact with. And if they can't do that successfully and they don't have confidence when doing that, they will also lose confidence for your brand, because your brand confidence is built through and by your people. So that was another area that we covered, and we've had a number of sessions on that. And then the last one is how do individuals enable themselves to deal with the situation? How do they get confidence in themselves? And so there's a number of skills that we teach you there. There's some hints and tips that you can use. And so that really is in a nutshell what those the webinar series that we've done to date, and the last 5 that we will be doing covers those areas. So there's 15 sessions, there's more than 15 resources, and they're all on demand and they're free. So the construct of all of our sessions, just a reminder for everybody, is that we talk a bit about the session that we're going to have, which gives you the context so that you know where we are and what we're talking about. And then from there, we give you 4 main areas that you can focus on to overcome certain problems that you may have. So let's just move straight into the context. The first one is I just want to give you some background to this as well. Today's session is a double win. Not only do we talk about the skills required, but we're also giving you some relevant information which was published 2nd week of July regarding the sentiment in the country on COVID. The research was undertaken by Ask Africa. They've got 23 years experience in their trade. So we thought their information was really credible and will be worthwhile to you, as it is to ourselves, in understanding just what is the water we're swimming in, and we'll speak a bit more about that. It gives you a benchmark so that you can understand how the greater population are feeling, and in some ways some comfort for you so that you do realize that yes, we are all in this together. So let's go straight on to the next bit, which is really reality-based thinking. Why did we choose the factual information from Ask Africa in this situation? So what is reality-based thinking? Surely everything's based on reality. No, it's not. You make decisions, and you need to make decisions which are based on facts that are free of impulsivity, recklessness, paranoia, and false beliefs, and especially times like now where there is so much of that going around. It's really important that you make the decisions that you need to make based on reality. If you want to explore the concept further, there's a really good book by Katie Byron, and it's called Loving What Is. And that really is the fact. What is real and what isn't, and then love that and make decisions based on that. So right, let's just go a bit more into the context. And the idea here is that, I know it's a strange analogy, but what is the water that we're swimming in? What are we swimming in? What water are we swimming in? What is this? So the bottom line is fish thrive in fresh water or in seawater, and they die in contaminated water. So before the pandemic, we were in water of some sorts, and it's only of late that we've been evaluating the quality of that water. We've questioned many things about it in the last while. It's what we value, what we eat, how we manage our lifestyle, what things matters to us, what gives our life purpose. So we're busy filtering that water while we're swimming through it, and we need to use that opportunity to make sure the quality is good and make decisions based on the water we're swimming in, which in actual fact is the macro environment. And I think that has changed radically, and I think that to a large extent we're very much in a state of shock and of grief. So let's just explore that concept a bit more. So, you know, there's the Kubler-Ross stages of grief, and I think it's important that you just think a bit about this, because I know I am, and I think most other people are as well. But in essence, there are 5 stages. You are either in denial, and you think that the webinar and the virus won't affect you at all, and it's just going to be a matter of time, you're going to go back to where you were. Or you're really angry about the whole situation. I'm being forced to stay at home, and my activities have been taken away from me, what I'm used to. And yeah, I'm sure most of us feel that way, because I couldn't believe that shopping and drinking coffee and going out for a drink with my mates was such an important thing in my life, but it obviously is. And then you go to bargaining, which is, it's okay. You know, if I only have to do this for a few weeks, everything will get better and I'll get over it, and it's not a problem. It's not a problem, it's for the greater good. Then there's a sadness, which is actually, you know, I don't know when this will end. Will it ever end? And what is the world going to look like once it has ended? Because things are already changing. And then there's a level of acceptance. And this is you, when you get to the point where you realize, okay, this is happening. I can't just get stuck and say I'm not going to go this way or that way, and you just move on. And it's at that stage where you start considering making decisions. So I think that really, if you're going to make long-term, far-reaching decisions, try and make sure that you make them once you've hit acceptance and you're not in one of the others, because you might actually make the wrong decision because your frame of mind is not right, but we'll get there. So if you have a look at the research that was done by Ask Africa in 2 weeks ago, basically, at the start of lockdown, everybody was in the bargaining. Okay, so we'll stay at home and we'll look after ourselves, and soon we'll get out and everything's going to go back to normal. And I think that's truly what most of us thought. Today, where we are now, where we're in level 3, 35% of the people are experiencing a sadness. And they're feeling, okay, this is not going to go back to normal. It's going to change. It's going to have a massive impact on our life. And there's a sadness of wanting to get back what you had. And not knowing when this will end. So if you look at it, 26% of the people in level 3 were quite, it's just going to get over and we're going to be fine. And now we're sitting with 35% of the people that are sitting in the sadness. So you can see that shift. So I think the other interesting statistics are 71% of people are experiencing frustration. High levels of frustration, not just frustration, high levels of frustration. And I think the frustration comes from we're not clear about how to deal with this. Humans don't deal with uncertainty very well at all. I know I don't, and I'm sure most of you don't. And so as a result, we feel stuck. We feel like we're treading water, and the frustration is really high. And whereas people initially were fearful of economic recessions, unemployment, loss of income, strangely enough, they now mostly fear contracting COVID. And that's also an interesting shift from where they were to where they are now. So these are just some of the areas which I want to paint the picture and give you the context for. So these are all the things that are touching our lives as an individual. Our citizenship, how is that being encroached upon, and how are our rights being affected? And we all have constitutional rights, and we can see crazy things that are going on, and that's really a worry for us, which is one of the things. Our employment and our occupational well-being, we're having to take cuts in our salaries, we might not have a job, some have already lost their job, so that's a terrifying thing. Our consumerism, which is also a terrifying thing, like how's that going to change our lives? What are we going to be able to get? There are already shortages of things. How's that going to impact about how we live, where we're going to get money from to eat, where we're going to buy our food, etc. And then the social change. And I suppose the first thing that we should start with is the social change, but I've ended there because I want to move into that. So the social change is our whole life has changed. We are no longer living in the old world order. This is a new world order, and it's also a new work order. And I think that's the best way to describe it. It's an order, you know, so the idea of saying a workplace, that is gone. There is no place. It is an order. It's how we're ordering our lives and how we are actually managing the process of our lives. So, you know, I find it very difficult. All of a sudden I think, oh, I'll go and do the shopping at 11 today, because then I can do something else later. Usually at 11 I'm jam-packed with appointments and I'm trying to see clients and sit in the traffic. So the work order has changed. The order in which we do things, the order in which things happen, it's all changed. So you can imagine, based on that, you are sitting in a situation where there are 100 different decisions that you need to make. Do I stay at home or go to the office, given that people are now quite fearful of getting COVID? Do I sell my home, as I don't know if I'll be able to afford it in 2 months' time? I don't even know if I'll have a salary or a job in 2 months' time. Do I send my children to school? Maybe they'll get it and bring it back home. And if I don't send them, do I lose the year? And if we lose the year, do we have to pay for another year of schooling? 12 years is more than enough. Do I do online shopping or risk a visit to the stores? And do I first check where the risk level is high before I go to the stores? So these are all decisions that you have to make, and some are a whole lot tougher than others. So deciding where you're going to go shopping versus whether you're going to take your kids out of school and homeschool them or change their schooling, and whether you're going to sell your house or not, there's a huge difference. And the tough decisions are the ones that we're going to be talking about today. So just before I do that, I'll go into the 4 focus areas, and then if we can just cover the quick poll, I think then we'll have a better idea of where we're going. So the 4 focus areas really are, the old way of thinking and doing is everybody, whenever something changes, they think, oh, I've been there, done that, you know, and the new way of thinking is, no, in actual fact, you haven't. None of us, except people who are in their 80s and 90s, have lived through a pandemic and understood what impact it's going to have on their world and their work. And so this is a whole new way of thinking and doing, and we really need to look at it as that. So what are the 4 focus areas? The first thing is get into the right frame of mind and try to avoid seeking approval from others, because others are not going to be able to give you the approval because they themselves are sitting in the same boat as what you are, and it's probably more important that you make the decisions based on your circumstances and the water that you're swimming in. The next item is get the facts. Don't make decisions without having clear-cut facts and understanding exactly where you're at, what is happening in the world around you. Then you can make a clear decision. And then avoid over-analyzing. If you can remember, we had the workshop on leadership hesitance and how that affects you. Over-analyzing is one of those problems, and often you're so busy over-analyzing that a window of opportunity passes you by, or something happens and you lose an opportunity. So avoid over-analyzing, it's a key thing. And then lastly is, you know, when you're in a difficult situation, is just consider achievements to date. What have you achieved to date? What have you overcome? It might not be a pandemic, it might have been another situation. Draw on that and learn from the mistakes you made there and the good things that you made there. And avoid the feeling of having to get approval from others. So I've said that twice now because it is so important. People are forever trying to post something on Facebook and then see what others think about it, and based on what they think about it to make a decision. Not always the wisest move. They're not in your shoes. They don't understand your situation. So then you can make clear decisions. So that gives you a bit about the context, and it gives you a bit about the 4 areas that we're going to cover. And this is applied to both you as a personal individual, but as a leader in a workshop. And if you, I mean, in a work, I was going to say workplace, in the work order or the organization that you work for, it applies to you there as well. And it also applies to business owners. How are you dealing with these things, and what are you going to do differently? So the first thing I'd like us to do is if we could do a quick poll. And this quick poll is really about where do you find yourself on the Kubler-Ross scale. So I'm sure if you've been on our webinars before, you'd know if you use a QR code reader on your phone, you scan this in and you can answer the question. So where do you find yourself on the Kubler-Ross scale? Do you think you're in denial, you're angry, you're bargaining, you're sad, you've accepted it, or I'm actually not experiencing grief, I'm fine, or actually I'm just so numb to it all. I'm just over the whole thing. So if you can maybe give us a response to that, we'll give you the results at the end of the session. I'll give you a minute or so just to have a look at that. If you could answer that for us, we'd be very grateful. Thank you. Okay, cool. A minute is a long time when you're sitting and waiting. On the note of you answering our quick polls, we'd like to thank you. We have Charles, who is producing the webinar, and you're more than welcome to pass comments, to ask questions. Towards the end of it, we will answer those questions, and we really do appreciate it because it gives us some idea of how useful this information is. So right, now let's get into those 4 things, and let's give you some skills as to what you can do in this regard. So the first one is get into the right frame of mind and find out where you are on this continuum. And I think that's exactly what you're going to do right now. I think that the majority of people will no longer be sitting in a situation where they think the virus is not going to affect them. I think everybody has been affected. I think that a lot of people who have been forced to stay at home, we've had staff collect their computers, collect their chairs, collect stuff that they had here because their home chair isn't comfortable enough, and I'm sure you've done the same thing, and which might alleviate some of the anger. And then, you know, are you still in a bargaining stage? Do you want to know when this will end? Are you feeling sad about it? And this is happening. I have to figure out how to proceed. So the thing to look at here is, what do you have to change immediately? Is there anything that you have to change immediately, or can you leave it until a certain date and give yourself a date? Because we actually don't know where this is going. We don't know whether we're going to be a lot worse off at the end of August. They're already talking in the States about having vaccinations available at the end of the year. We're thinking, I mean, just today I was listening to the radio and they're saying they're going to probably stop the children from going to school. So what does that mean? You know, so I think the thing here is, if you don't have to change anything immediately, try and sit it out a bit longer just so that you can get some more clarity. So what can wait and what can't? There are certain things that can't wait. If you can't put food on the table, that obviously can't wait. You need to find another mechanism and make a decision about who's going to go and look for a job. What are we going to do to get revenue? And taking into account that it takes a while to earn money and to get a new job, especially in the current climate. So, you know, like I said, have a look and see what you have to change immediately and what you can leave and wait, maybe list them. And then understand what it is that you're hoping to achieve. What is the sought after outcome with this, and what would success look like? So success right now would mean that I have clarity about my children's schooling, I perhaps have a new job, and make a list of what success looks like and what is the sought after outcome. And if you're feeling overwhelmed or tired, don't make any decisions because you're going to make the wrong ones. So try to find a day and a time where you're on a mood where your psyche can deal with it and you have got emotional support around you and you're feeling stronger than the day before or than the hour before, etc. And I think we're all feeling that. I think anybody who denies that is definitely in denial. There are days when I wake up and I think, what is going to happen? And on those days, I vacillate between sadness and acceptance and anger, and I go down, up and down that scale like a yo-yo. And I think most of us do, but try to find the types of things that you have to change and then try to see where you are in that space and whether you can deal with it or not. I don't think one day is going to make a difference to whether you actually make the right decision or not. So get into the right frame of mind. The next thing is avoid overanalyzing. How would you go about that? And that's around getting the facts. Avoid inaccurate or incomplete assumptions. And I think, you know, I don't know, don't take America's situation or what you're seeing on CNN or on Sky or on anywhere else. Try and have a look at what's going on in South Africa and how that's going to affect you. Understand exactly what the facts are. Speak to the school about the schooling. Speak to lawyers about rent. And we're looking to, on our live streaming, we're probably going to have a session on legal advice on rent, on schooling, on all the rest pretty soon. We will have somebody in who's credible and capable and can give you some advice there, because I think it is something which plays on your psyche and it stops you from making a lot of the decisions because you don't know what the legal ramifications are. So expose yourself to different perspectives. When it's something which is around the illness and how long it's going to take, don't listen to injecting yourself with chlorine. That is not going to work. Okay. Also, don't listen to the fact that it's going to magically disappear, because it hasn't magically disappeared anywhere around the world. It is going to last. For how long do we think it's going to last? I think those are the things that we need to get the facts on. Bounce your thoughts of someone you trust. So don't have conversations with people with limited access to information, or really themselves follow conspiracy theories, or don't really know the real story. Rather try and find somebody who you do trust and that you know has correct information, and bounce your thoughts off those people. And just see how aligned your thinking can become so that you can make the decision. And then make explicit assumptions and see whether they hold true. So gather the hard data. So once you've gathered your thoughts and said, okay, this is what I think, have a look at how the hard data compares to that. So one of the things we will be supplying after this, and you can go and get it on the on-demand link on our website, is the Ask Africa report, which is, I think it's about 60 pages long, which gives you how the country is feeling on those 4 areas. And that's really some nice solid information as to how others are feeling and their sentiments. And you can use that information as well to clarify your thinking. So that then is to get the facts and avoid inaccurate information. Then the next thing is really to avoid overanalyzing. And that's always an issue, and I think we all do that, and I know specifically I do that. I always get told that I do that, so I'm sure I do. And really what we want to talk about here is, you know, consider the cost of not making a decision. What would that be? You know, so, okay, I've got these 5 decisions to make. If I don't make this decision right now, what will the cost of making that decision, not making that decision right now be? It's neither here nor there. Put it to one side and bring up the next decision. So make a list of decisions, rate them of importance and whether they're far-reaching or not. Look at where you're sitting on the continuum. of whether you are actually going to make the right decision or whether you're still thinking that this is not going to happen, so you're going to make a decision on when you're in the denial phase. Not a good idea. And then have a look and say, well, if I don't make this decision, what would the cost of not making the decision be? If it's not huge, move it out. If it's huge, it goes to number 1 on the list. Then give yourself a deadline. Say that if I don't make this decision by a certain date, this will be the consequence of that. And I think that's important. So I thought it was really interesting because the Ask Africa information in their report clearly stated, you know, the facts might be hard and they might be difficult to accept, and they might mean that you do have to make decisions that you don't want to make, but if you don't make the decisions, you can't move forward. And I think that is an important statement to make. If you look at most of the facts that are going around at the moment, we are going to be in this position for the next 18 months to 2 years. It's a long time. So there will be decisions that need to be made. And then use self-talk. You've got this. Okay, you've been in difficult times before, whether it was looking for a new job, whether it was finding a school for your child when you didn't know, whether it was a position in a business where you felt that you were in above your head and you had to find out how to get about it. You've got this. You've done it before. We've all gone through this transition. We've all done these things before. We need to draw on that strength that we did. So use self-talk, because it really is powerful. Look at your lifeline and say, what have I done before? And what have I gotten through before? That's really useful. So grab a piece of paper and a pen and write down and say, what were key milestones in my life and how did they affect me? And we've done this with numerous groups, and something that has always amazed me is you will always see that one of the difficult times in their life resulted in one of the best outcomes, because they were challenged, they had to get out of their comfort zone and do something different. And I really think this is one of those times. So use self-talk, draw your own lifeline up, have a look at what you've done before, and then from there, make a commitment. I'm going to change this. I'm going to do this differently. And then the other thing I think that's quite important, it's not always about making the right decision, but being able to make the decision right. So what does that mean? Once you've made the decision, have you got any wriggle room should the decision not be 100% right? What is that wriggle room? So if I've made this decision, it's not 100% right, I could still do this maybe to get me out of that situation, or do that to make the situation better. So have a look at that wriggle room, because things do change. So the decision may not be definitive, but you can always make the decision right. You don't have to always make the right decision. Right, the next area, which I think you should be quite cognizant of, is what I've spoken about around making the decisions right, and I've also mentioned some of achieving results. But now let's just look at what you've done before. I did speak a bit about it now, but I'm going to take in some more information around that. So consider unhealthy patterns of decision making. If you did a lifeline like I suggested, you will see that you may have, or you may not, have unhealthy patterns of decision making. And what are they? And try not to fall into that trap again. We all have. You often find that in relationships, you choose the wrong people, or you make the wrong decision. You make a short-term decision with a long-term goal in mind. And those patterns of behavior are something that you should look at. That's your pattern of decision making that might be faulty. Then focus on the objective. So what is the purpose? What is the objective? If you make a decision and you change it, what are you trying to do and why are you trying to do it? What is the outcome going to be? Can't always just be saving money. There has to be some other reason. So perhaps if I try to finish my child's schooling in this year, I don't have an extra year to do, and I can do that through homeschooling. So there are certain areas that you need to look at and say, what is the purpose? Why am I trying to do this? What will be the outcome of that? And therefore, why should I investigate doing it? Don't exaggerate the cost of changing your mind. So I think often people think that if I change my mind, there's going to be so many consequences to that. There aren't always. So I really think you need to weigh it up well before you make the decision. Involve people with no emotional stake in your situation. So if you've got a child and you've got an issue and you want to talk about schooling, speak to people. Maybe you don't have children, because they'll see it from a different point of view. They'll see it from a purely logistical point of view, or maybe a financial point of view, and you can put all the pieces together and come up with the right answer at the end of that. And I think it's also important to know when to ask for help. And I think that's where we're talking about legal help. That's where we're talking about psychological help, or mental health help, or physical health. So I think it's quite important that you know your limits and you know when you have to ask for help. You don't have to be good at everything. And then the last thing is, asking for help doesn't mean trying to buy popularity. And I think that's a big thing again. Don't make this all about making the right choice because you'll be popular, or because you'll get 100 likes on Instagram, or people on Facebook will approve of what you're doing. They don't know your situation, only you do. So those then are the 4 key areas that I wanted to take you through. I'm going to move into the next poll, because I think it's quite important that we get this poll as well. So the next poll, sorry, I've got sound over here, just need to turn it off. Right, so the next poll is really to have a look at, do you have some tough decisions to make? Yes, it's really just to gauge how make decisions and changing.
Sorry to interrupt, Linda. Whatever you did to turn the sound off has caused a problem with your microphone. So maybe turn the volume down and put the soundtrack back on.
Right, so let's move along now, and let's have a look at, if you've got tough decisions and you've religiously gone through those 4 focus areas, I believe you can make a good decision, and then that will take a load off your mind and you'll feel a whole lot better. So let's just have a look what success would look like if you manage to sort this out, and really you would have peace of mind. I think that often making the decision is more taxing than executing the decision. And I think that often happens when you're going into a new job or a new position and you think to yourself, okay, should I leave or shouldn't I leave or whatever. Once you've made the decision, actually getting on with it and going to the new job and finding out what it's like, looking back on what you had, it's obvious, it's often a lot easier. So making the decision is really the difficult part. So you'll have some peace of mind if you get the decision made. You'll have a different purpose, because in order to realize that decision, you'll have to do something differently, and you'll have a different purpose. You would have scoped out your purpose differently. You may want to have a more family orientated life. You may want to have a healthier way of eating. So many people in the Ask Africa survey said they are not going to go back to junk food eating. They've now weaned the family off all the junk food franchises, and they're probably not going to go back to that now. They're saying they've worked out how to cook, which they never could, or they've worked out how to bake. So I think there's going to be a lot of banana bread in everybody's homes moving forward. But that really is the situation. That is going to have a change to what they're doing. That purpose is now changed from just feeding people to making sure that your family is healthy, because the benefits are weight loss, energy, whatever. The next thing is that you will have energy to face the next day. And I think that's really important, because I think under the circumstances that we're in, facing the next day is sometimes taxing. I don't know how many people lie there in bed in the morning, especially now in winter, and think, oh, do I have to get up this morning? Get up, get out there, find that purpose and do the right thing. And then last but not least is you will have some kind of security that you have got something to move forward. And what does that mean? Making this decision, getting that energy, getting that security feels like you're back in control. And when you feel like you're back in control, it manifests itself as confidence. And that's really what you're wanting. You're wanting to get that sense of, I'm back in control of my life. And what people will see when you feel like you're back in control of your life is they will see confidence, whether that's an individual or whether that's a company. It's the same thing. So on that note, I will go over to Charles in a few minutes. What I just want to do is just ask you to like the webinar if you've enjoyed it, to follow us if you'd like to see more. On our website, there is a contact us form for a free consultation or evaluation of a situation. You're welcome to do that. And I think, yeah, the next one is about followership. And I'd just like to talk a little bit about followership. So everybody is always completely passionate about leaders, and there's for every 20 books on leaders, there's one book on followership, but you cannot have a leader without a follower. So our next session is on followership and just how you can implement that successfully in your business, because although today a lot of what we spoke about was at a personal level, we're really looking at how do we improve the individuals within a business to build the business brand. So next week is on followership, and I hope to see you all then. In the meantime, there will be catch-up sessions in the evenings at 8. Just keep your eye open for them. And I will hand over to Charles for the results from the quick polls, as well as any questions or comments. Charles.
Okay, thank you, Linda. So to give you the results of the quick poll number 1, where do you find yourself on the Kubler-Ross scale?
Charles, I can't hear you.
Okay, that's weird. Let me check. Sorry, if you guys can hear me, I think, yeah, your sound is down. Didn't you remember you turned the sound off? Okay.
No,
carry on. Sorry about that, everybody. So just to go through it again then, where do you find yourself on the Kubler-Ross scale? The acceptance, I'm not experiencing any grief and I'm numb to it all with the responses. The majority feel acceptance and not experiencing any grief, which is quite interesting. Then the second poll, that was around, do you have some tough decisions to make? 3/4 of the audience feel that they do, and 1/4 of us feel that we don't. So thank you for your participation, everybody. There were no questions on either of the social media channels or on the Teams meeting, Linda. So I'll hand back to you and you can carry on.